Hi everybody, Mrs. Pesek here, and I'm glad that you're watching for the Blended Learning Day. This is the start of Chapter 4 on trigonometry, and Section 4.1 is on radian and degree measure. Now, just as a little introduction, trigonometry is from the Greek. It means the measure of triangles. It originally dealt with the relationships between the sides and angles of a triangle, but later the trig relationships were viewed as functions with the set of real numbers as the domain. And we get to study both aspects of trigonometry. And there's so many awesome applications for trigonometry. There's rotations, vibrations, sound waves, light rays, planetary orbits, pendulums, and we're going to be studying the graphs of a trig function, like here's the graph of the sine function. Looks like that, just goes on oscillating forever and ever. Okay, so let's talk about angles before we can get too far into this. So an angle example. An angle is determined in trigonometry differently than in geometry. It is determined by rotating a ray about its endpoint. So let's say we put the endpoint right here at the origin, 0, 0. We have an initial side here, and then the amount of rotation, like if I rotate the angle, the other side of the angle, the other ray, might look like that. So there's a rotation associated with an angle in trigonometry. The standard position is an angle with its vertex at 0, 0, like we see here, and the initial side on the positive x-axis, just like I've drawn it here. So this would be the initial side. And then we rotate from the initial side to get to the terminal side, and the terminal side could be anywhere. Positive angles are generated by counterclockwise rotation. So this angle here is going counterclockwise. You know how a clock works, right? Clockwise. So this is counterclockwise. So this would be a positive angle measure. Whereas if I drew an angle that has this initial side here, but I rotate it this way, and it ends up with the terminal side here, that would be a negative angle because I'm going clockwise. Negative angles are generated by clockwise rotation. All right, and angles in trigonometry are often labeled with Greek letters, alpha, beta, and usually we use theta. Okay, we can also use uppercase letters to represent angles. All right, let's talk about coterminal angles. Coterminal angles will have the same initial side, so here's the initial side, and they will have the same terminal side. So here's the terminal side here, and but they are going to possibly go in different directions. They don't have to go in different directions. So here's an example. I've got this angle alpha here, and I've got this angle beta. They have the same initial side and the same terminal side, and they are coterminal angles. I could also draw another sketch of coterminal angles. Let's say I have this angle here. That's alpha, let's say. And then I have an angle that wraps more than one time around the circle and ends up with that same terminal side, and that could be beta. So yes, angles can go more than 360 degrees in trigonometry. Okay, so there are so the measure of an angle is determined by the amount of rotation from the initial side to the terminal side. There are two units of measures for angles, radians and degrees. You're already familiar with how degrees work, so you know that if you have an angle that measures like this, for example, that is a 90-degree angle, right? That would be the angle of rotation here. If we had an angle that measured 180 degrees, for example, it would look like this. All right, so at this point, I'm going to stop the video so that you can watch the next video, which is a Khan Academy video on radian measures and what radians are all about.